Okay,
One
okay.
has to
Take,
be.
what are we on? Three? Take three? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, which you can actually see now because I don't have the splash screen up. We're a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. You can tell because how bad I am at this. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today are...
I'm Andrew, also known as the White Guar.
I'm Michael, though you might know me as Scourgicus or Moonsugar Leader.
I am Felix, also known as Banu Hana Masaishi. I do Redguard stuff.
Mm-hmm. And what was it? That guy from the...
Oh yeah, that guy from the Beau the Fifth Column video about brunch being canceled.
Yep. Brunch is canceled. Today we're talking about Nocturnal because, I mean, to be honest, because Nocturnal's next in line. But, you know, and this is one of the things that I was actually really... This is one of the Daedra I was really excited to talk about because ESO has been very kind to Nocturnal. There's been a lot of really good stuff written about Nocturnal, a lot of good stuff about how the Khajiit worship Nocturnal or view Nocturnal, and just, time to get confused about the ending of the Skyrim Thieves Guild quest. We could definitely have to cover that. And Nocturnal is one of those Daedra that represents an actual, like, mythically speaking, a good thing. The idea of, you know, darkness and... the unfathomable mystery and so on. Nocturnal's one of those Daedras that has a lot of titles. A lot. Including the Mistress of Shadows, the Unfathomable Mistress of Shadows, which is better than the former one. The Shadow Thief, the Unfathomable, the Empress of Murk, the Shadow Queen, the Lady of Twilight, the Daughter of Twilight, the Lady of Shadows, the Mystery of Mystery, the Mistress of Mystery, the Mother of Shadows, Lady Luck, the Night Mistress, and the Saint of Suspicion.
Also, basically, peak goth mom. Let's be real here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Big titty goth GF.
Mm-hmm. And
I was thinking it, but you said it.
Well, yeah. So one of the reasons why I like Nocturnal so much is because, again, he or she or whatever embodies a very primal energy of darkness, but also it's a sort of a very primal dark. It's what a lot of people think about when they think about either Anu or Padme, depending on your point of view. One of them is either a big brightness or a darkness. It's in my experience, it's almost always Padme, I think. But whether or not that's an accurate way to think about them or not is we're not going to get into that. But one of the things that I was doing before prepping for this cast was I was looking up darkness as a concept in mythology, in other religions, and world history, just ancient mythology.
That's also why I'm here.
Yep. And I found some very interesting stuff. I found so much interesting stuff. I didn't really get anything really, really juicy because I was just getting wiki lost. But one of the things that was brought up in an article I was reading was, and I'm just talking about the non-specific concept of darkness in general, is the importance that darkness plays on mythology and religion and worldview in very early culture. I mean, exceedingly early. Because one of the things that you want to keep in mind about darkness is, one of the things you want to keep in mind about human history and psychology and etc. is it's all fundamentally... you can all trace it all the way back to basically apes huddling together in a cave. And when early human, when the human organism first began, darkness and nighttime was not something that we did well in. We did probably better than we do now, due to certain evolutionary stuffs. I'm thinking about eyesight specifically, but it wasn't something that we operated well in. Mankind has, to the best of my knowledge, never been a nocturnally based organism. We hunted better in the daytime. We hunted better when we could see things. So at night, what you ended up with was a lot of very primitive people huddled together in a cave, listening out away in the darkness outside of their fires to horrible fucking noises and terrible things happening. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the incredibly random stuff that happens on this planet, like volcanoes and lightning and ball lightning and weird atmospheric phenomenon, meteor showers, all this other kind of stuff, eventually you kind of start to wonder, how did primitive people react to that stuff? And my suspicion is badly. So I suspect a lot of the fundamental parts of mythology and religion from a scientific point of view probably started from people from primitive people trying to explain things happening in the dark that they couldn't see. And so there's a lot of fear that happens as a result. There are very few people in modern times nowadays that will tell you that they have absolutely no problem being stuck in a pitch black room or a closet or something like that. It makes everybody nervous. Any parent will tell you that the second you turn off the lights, 99 out of 100 children will just lose their minds. My
son practically has a flashlight aimed at his face at all times.
Exactly. And that doesn't speak ill of them. That's because they're human. Yeah. They're people. Yeah. So the fact that Nocturnal is associated with darkness and fear should not be a surprise. And it's almost definitely not a surprise. I'm almost definitely telling everybody things that they already know. Yeah, big stupid babies. But what that means is that if you keep that stuff in mind, then going back and reviewing early religion or even modern religion and looking at negative forces and reading the language used to explain them or describe them, you'll often find words like dark or obscure or etc. Threatening darkness, related metaphors, because this is where darkness has been tied. When Nocturnal as a Daedra is the idea of a Daedra representing the negative aspects of darkness is not surprising, but what we like about the Elder Scrolls universe is that they almost never just leave it there in a simple place. Nocturnal also represents a lot of the other aspects of darkness, including the void, including possibility, including secrets and mystery.
She's associated with luck too, at least in regards to thieves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have a few things to sort of, before we get fully onto Nocturnal. There's one thing I want to add, Chris, about early humanity and the darkness and our resistance to it. All fantastic points. This is also why a lot of early humanity places a lot of great emphasis on fire gods and the cycles of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a way of being able to see, albeit imperfectly, at night, mm-hmm. which is also part of why a full moon, depending on the culture, was either a good thing or a bad thing. Because mm-hmm. in certain cultures, a full moon was usually a portent of doom because it meant more dangerous wild animals could see at night.
Could also see you, yeah.
Them, and so it was kind mm-hmm. of terrifying and it was more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, for others, the idea of a new moon sparked the notion of a new cycle. This is how a lot of people kept track of time. Yeah. And time, especially in Hinduism, is often associated with the darkness, because before time began, there was only darkness, and mm-hmm. even in darkness, time can still be a thing. Mm-hmm. And this is also why the sort of, like you touched on a bit with the void and everything. I think I actually mentioned this a while back when we were talking about Kali in relation to some aspects and like ego death and stuff. The reason why Kali is typically depicted as black or a very like deep sky blue is because she represents the void and the purity of the cosmos and time, which is the absence of light and any kind of force projection. It's a weird form of purity depending on who you ask in Hinduism.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that on top of it in terms of alternative cultural reasons and adding on to the whole why darkness is scary or can be a sign of opportunity or new beginnings in certain cultures.
Yeah, and as you've also pointed out by extension, why light and brightness and the sun frequently ended up being the the main god of a lot of religions, sun-worshipping religions, including Judaism, Judeo-Christianity, is because the sun brought light and safety and warmth and all those things you can associate with it, and fire just sort of felt to a lot of people like, well, we've just taken what's in the sky and we've brought it down to the earth, you know. So see also the theft of fire and etc.
Prometheus,
Yeah. There's lots of Promethean myths in a variety of religions, referring to there's usually some mythic figure. I'm pretty sure in like Polynesian cultures, I think it's Maui or some other cultural figure who like steals fire.
That's the whole plot of Moana. So
right, but like again, it shows like everyone has the sort of fire origin story, and you can also see in human history the evolution of gods, as it were. It starts off where the most important gods are like fertility gods, hunting gods, and fire gods, because those are the things that early caveman humans
or like the sun.
But then the sun becomes very prominent once we figure out agriculture.
Right.
And then that's also when they start to study the stars more often, which is why the Babylonians had so much time to stare at the sky and figure out constellations and write down codes and shit. It's because they figured out agriculture. And this is why so many sun gods become very important, and harvest gods. And then there's all these different gods that explain all the facets of society and culture and wealth and art. And then as that evolves and our societies become more complex and we understand more of the world, it then becomes kind of tied around these sort of core concepts or beliefs of a single creator God, and there is a purpose to existence, be it to serve God in the afterlife or to be reincarnated and break the cycle of existence because existence is a trap. Ding ding ding. Like that, you start to see that then religion becomes far more philosophical after a while, as opposed to just worshiping the different like biological things that you can see and feel around you, right? Like it's a constant change in gods. Like we don't need to pray to fertility gods anymore because we have fertility science to figure that out.
Because we understand it more. And in fact, one of my favorite quotes from Alejandro Jodorowsky is that and I'm paraphrasing it, but when a man stands in the desert, he forms a shadow of a sundial and begins to measure time, and the measuring of time is the beginning of culture. And that goes to exactly what you were saying, which is that when you begin to measure time, you begin to be able to plan for harvest and season. And the moment you can start planning for the harvest and to control and to create agricultural science is the moment that you can stop spending every fucking living minute hunting things. And the moment you gain, the moment you gain that freedom to like slow down and look around at the world around you, you begin to think about it, you begin to analyze it, and you begin to develop culture. You begin to develop science. You begin to develop religion. And
religion, mythology,
exactly.
worldview, all these things.
Exactly,
art.
Innovation. Yeah, and you're right, Matthew. The sun is not always a feminine or is not always a masculine or feminine force. It can vary depending on culture and all kinds of things. It goes all over the place. And there are I think I remember reading something about a religion that considers the sun to be part of the sky, and so the sky itself is also part of is actually one large entity, and I can't remember the name of it, but
is that
whatever.
Tengriism?
I can't remember. It's so near the end of my my memory that I might actually just be making that out of my ass. So Michael, I don't suppose you know anything about Nocturnal vis-a-vis the Khajiit by any chance, do you?
Oh, of course I do.
Good.
Yeah. And,
what else is he here?
All kinds of reasons, but Khajiit's one of them.
Khajiit is definitely one of them. Yeah, and so I had said last time on the Namira cast that I had a heresy to share about Nocturnal, and since then I've looked into it and discovered it's not a heresy; it's just Khajiit theology.
Oh, okay.
So it's all good. But let's see. So let's back up for just a second. This that I'm going to read is from the favored daughter of Fatome, and it's about Lorcaj's death and Namira, and then I'll explain.
Oh, I think I know this one,
I'll go to the second reading, and it'll make sense. Lorcaj stood in the doorway. He was broken and bleeding, and there was a hole in his chest. But the great darkness was still in his blood, and it filled the hole where his heart had been. The dark mass beat like a heart, and black blood spilled out onto the threshold. Azura heard each beat of the heart like the beating of a drum, and each drop of blood tapped to form a rhythm she felt in her tail. But Fatime had taught Azura the names of all the spirits, and so she recognized the great darkness for what it was, and she roared in time with the song, Dra Namira, and that's repeated. And Azura tore out the dark heart of Lorcaj, and all the darkness in him came with it, and she cast it beyond the sea. Okay, so that's Namira as the darkness inside of Lorcaj. And we talked last time about Namira being the darkness awakened. That whole thing with Jung, those of you playing the game.
There's another one.
Check off Carl Jung. You knew it wasn't going to take long.
No.
But as darkness awakens. So then we go over to Amandro and the dark spirits, and he talks about Noctra and calls her the shadow thief, daughter of twilight, born from the black blood of Lorcaj at the steps of the Void Gate. In the songs, Boethra battled this spirit, that being Noctra, until it knew it was not Namira. When this was done, Noctra was brought before Azura to be judged. Azura showed mercy and allowed Noctra to live, so long as she served Azura and the Jokajay, that's the moons. But Noctra is rebellious by nature, so she stealing one of Azura's keys and fled back into the void. That was the darkness. It is written that Azura sent the true spirit of Lorcaj, the Moon Prince, to find her, and ever since Noctra has aided the Khajiit when called. Tribes may whisper to Noctra for silence, shade, and luck. Do not summon her to perform vile deeds, for this will bring the dark, capital D, dark, with her. So there's a lot there to chew on.
Yeah, Nocturnal had an identity crisis and thought she was Namira at one point.
She thought she was Namira. So there is a we could spend hours on this, but so there is a very deep connection between Namira and Nocturnal. Yeah. And so we said of Namira that Namira was the darkness that had awakened. So quick return and sum up for this, for those of you who didn't see the Namira cast. So Carl Jung writes at one point, to achieve enlightenment, one does not draw figures of light, but makes the dark awakens the darkness, or something that I'm paraphrasing. And it's the idea of persona and shadow, right? That we have within us these two natures. One is our idealized self, persona. That's what we show to the world. That's who we'd like to think we are. The other is the shadow, which is the parts of ourselves that we don't like and we reject and we repress. And the conflict between these can lead us into all kinds of hypocritical problems. And Jung says what we have to do is reconcile the two together and recognize that they're both a part of ourself.
Right.
Okay, so and you do that by making the darkness conscious. You confront or confess or whatever and say, okay, these are the dark parts of myself, and then you have to kind of work with that.
Yeah.
So
you have to accept them.
You have to accept them. And it's not even like an exorcism thing. It's more of like an acceptance. Like this is who I am.
Any of you guys play Persona 4 by any chance?
Yeah, a little bit.
There's a lot of that in Persona 4. A lot of that in Persona 4.
Nice.
So the Persona games are good for that.
Yeah, they are. As a matter of fact, Persona 5 is basically the hero's journey from the tarot. It's.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's really. I freaking love that series. Yeah.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Do you remember? Do you know the last? Did you see the end of Persona 5, Felix?
Persona 5, the Golden.
Either of them.
Sorry, no, not Golden. Royal. I mean.
Yeah, either one. But there's the ending cinematic to Persona 5. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, watch it again and take a look at what the last thing Joker does. What's he do? You remember? He's kind of halfway out of the roof of the van, and he does something right before the credits roll. I'll wait for it, after the cast is over. Go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, I don't. I'll have to look at that again because I just remember the van and they're like driving off for summer vacation. But okay.
Yeah.
All right. Remind me again at the end of cast.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very, very good.
You'd like them,
Okay,
Michael.
so-
but
Yeah, I think Michael, if you're into JRPGs at all, and you have to be to like Persona,
And I
but if
do.
you're into them, then you should check it out. It's really, really good. They're
Cool.
very, very metaphysical. Very.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of my nephews is really into it, and it looked very cool. Anyway, going back then to words of Clan Mother on Nissi, she says that when the darkness, I forget exactly, and I don't have it up here, but basically that the darkness knew itself and knew its name was Namira. So we said that Namira is the darkness made conscious, and my heresy, which I think is pretty legit, is that Nocturnal is the darkness not awakened. The raw, visceral shadow.
Okay.
Actually, I like that, and the more I think about it, the more that makes sense, because the darkness awakened, in other words, the darkness that is known, would not be the darkness of mystery.
No.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah,
be
that was
more like
the same thing
Namira in the respect that it's an evil that you are making good with. But Nocturnal as a unawoken mystery makes a lot of sense, because it's the darkness, the part of your personality that you are not aware of.
Right.
And therefore it's more dangerous if you think about it. Okay, what's up, Felix?
I love when Felix get this smile. Talk to me.
Okay. So, again, as we've discussed before, there's usually spheres within spheres and different aspects of stuff, right? Nocturnal is the malicious darkness or the metaphysical darkness of one's soul. Vermina is the darkness within which your fears and nightmares from what you can't see reside. Nocturnal is the darkness from which all possibility can flow forth.
See that?
So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
that was something I said in chat earlier, is because some folks were ascribing fear to Nocturnal when it's not necessarily.
No,
That's
Yeah. Fear isn't necessarily her thing. Being unknowable is her thing. We naturally fear the unknowable. So I mean, there's a tangential link there, but
as with all different spheres, right? They're all kind of operating within each other.
Yeah,
if you want to think of it like, how sometimes there's bubbles that have other bubbles on top of them, but it's all part of the same structure. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, I have a much simpler description of that phenomenon. But right now it's not the time for it. But I mean, my whole point with Nocturnal is that, I mean, why do we fear the darkness in the first place? It's because we don't know what's there. It could be anything. Therefore, the darkness must be possibility.
Okay.
And
I like
it encompasses so many things that could be.
Well, yeah, and that's sort of what I was about to start saying. That
No, I'm smelling what you're stepping in.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's smelling good, at least. But basically,
like turpentine.
No. But to sort of throw it back to some of my exposure, and again, this is just what I remember. I'm probably remembering it imperfectly, because when I was first taught a lot of this stuff, I was like a child, like 6 or 7 years old, when I was first reading and hearing about like Hindu stories and religion and things like that. So very imperfect understanding. But one of the things that was told to me was that, and you see it with certain depictions, like it's not just Kali. Sometimes you'll see Shiva and Vishnu being depicted in all black, denoting an aspect relating to time, creation. There's this sense of possibility. And when you go to bed at night, there's some story, and hopefully someone can find it, but basically the idea was when you go to bed at night and you close your eyes, the first thing you see is darkness, but then the mind starts to go and it fills the darkness with a dream. And at the end of the day, this, like the way it was explained, was that this is ultimately what the concept of Brahman and Atman are, which is that it's that the world and the universe, it's all this dark sea. And the idea is to break the cycle and return to this to become one with all of creation and appreciate all of creation in its full breadth and possibility as part of the dream. Basically, it's all a big dream. And some cultures as well, like I found out about this recently, the Aboriginal people of Australia, they actually view certain dark clouds that you can see in the Milky Way as constellations, one of which is an emu. The Maya, I think it's, I forget if it's Xibalba or something else, but the great black streak is like the highway of the dead to the stars or something like that. So even when there's total darkness, various cultures around the world have seen fit to incorporate it in some positive, or just maybe not positive, but a necessary aspect of their religious or like just general world view. And what this ultimately means, at least for me in terms of Nocturnal, is Nocturnal's aspect of darkness and the shadow is it's the one of possibility. It's the realms of oblivion. It's the shadow behind the moons. It's the shadow that, you know, casts in the light of Magnus, which is its own form of magic. It is the it is the veil behind which vampires and werewolves can frolic freely. It aids in your stealth when you wish to sneak. It is a blessing. It is opportunity.
And that's so you know, and that actually kind of segues us very nicely into the artifacts of Nocturnal.
You're welcome.
Which we should cover. Yeah. Almost all of which are basically, you know, what you're going to be using if you're playing a stealth archer build, and if you're not playing a stealth archer build, then what the fuck are you doing? So a huge item in Oblivion is the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, which is used in the Thieves Guild quest. Not really gonna spoil it because it's one of the best series of quests in the game. And if you haven't played Oblivion, then again, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, it's been what, 15 years since that came out?
Well,
just about.
And it's gonna be another 15 years until we see another goddamn Elder Scrolls game. So
let's hope not. Let's hope not.
So what's interesting, I think, about the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal is the sort of the curse, I guess you want to say, of the Grey Cowl, which is that whosoever wears it shall be lost in the shadows. His true name shall be unknown to all who meet him. So this is the idea of Nocturnal representing the darkness of possibility. This is anonymity, basically, because you're obscured. His identity shall be struck from all records and histories. Memory will hide in the shadows, refusing to record the name of the owner to any who meet him. He shall be known by the cowl and only by the cowl. Does this remind anybody of Zero Sum?
Like, yes, but a little different. Because like, Zero Sum requires the awareness of it, whereas this is just kind of like a contract with artificial Zero Sum.
Yeah. It's similar in the respect that we speculate that Zero Sum erases you from history. But this seems to be more of a voluntary thing, whereas Zero Summing is just like, Zero Summing is the sort of like, it's the equivalent of the universe just saying, whoa, you were not supposed to do that, I'm yanking you before there's a bigger problem. It's uninstalling your exe, you know? It's disabling your mod.
Is it pressing Alt F4? Yeah,
basically, it's rebooting, but then we disable the mod that included you, and we wipe all the local variables. So, unfortunately, if we talk any more about the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, we're going to ruin the Thieves Guild quest, and I really don't want to do that because I want people to go out and play the damn thing. The Skeleton Key, however, is something that shows up in a whole mess of games. And it's almost always being used as a MacGuffin of some kind. But I think it's in Skyrim, I think.
I don't think it was a MacGuffin in Oblivion.
Yeah, I was about to say in Oblivion it's used. That's what it was. It was a MacGuffin in Skyrim, but in Oblivion it's actually used for part of a quest.
Yeah, and then was it present in Morrowind?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Was it? Skeleton
we can find out very quickly.
Yeah, I'm already on UASP, so.
I think the skeleton key was in Morrowind.
It is in Morrowind.
Yep, that's what I thought.
Devaith Fear apparently had it. Sotha Sil apparently used to own it.
Yeah, like it's been in every game. The skeleton key has been in Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim.
Yeah. Interesting. Apparently created by Nocturnal. That makes sense. Although the Khajiit say that it used to be Azura. Oh, that's the key that you were talking about.
That's the key that was stolen,
Azura gives her. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or that she steals.
She steals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it would make sense because Azura's sphere is liminality or gateways, and the skeleton key is a gateway to other stuff, and that's in the Skyrim Thieves Guild quest.
Yes, that's right.
I'm sure we'll come to that later.
We could probably do it now, considering what we're talking about. Actually, do we want to? Because I didn't want to spoil this Thieves Guild in Oblivion, so maybe we should.
That's true. We don't want to spoil it, but
yeah, not too much. I mean, it's been a while, but whatever.
Maybe it's enough to say that the locks that the skeleton key can't talk today can open are more than physical locks.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's actually.
Which we already
I remember.
knew.
Huh?
Which we already knew. We
Yeah.
know the skeleton key can unlock metaphorical doors.
Yeah.
As well.
I was waiting for me to get the ability to be able to unlock people.
Oh man.
Which I'm sure would be the most horrifying thing you've ever seen. But
I mean, technically, a sword
New
is
fighter
the key.
Yeah.
Technically, a sword is the key because when you stab it in
Yeah.
people, it unlocks their death.
Unlocks all their guts. Yeah. It all just comes flying out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the loot drop.
Right.
If you're an origin donor, that's your loot drop.
I got a legendary spleen.
Yeah, that's right. Mercer Frey unlocks himself. Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
One thing though, to sort of tie this back to Nocturnal and stuff in ESO, if I recall correctly, ESO makes it so that the origin of the Thieves Guild as we know it is actually in Hammerfell in Abba's Landing.
Okay.
I think.
Well, I think it's just that particular Thieves Guild. Because remember, the Thieves Guild is not a singular entity. There are lots of different Thieves Guilds. They're unaffiliated with each other.
Right.
Okay. I guess that's technically true. Right. Okay. So then my question about that then is that's how that one started. But then in the game Morrowind, when you eventually get to the point where you can take over the Thieves Guild, there's a series of quests you have to do with these gloves. Are those gloves from Nocturnal?
Wow, it's been too long.
Yeah,
since
I
I've done
don't
that quest.
I don't think so.
Okay, because then my whole thing is that quest, if it is tied to Nocturnal and stuff, it actually paints her in a very good and favorable light. Because the idea is you have to use these gloves while committing these quests and to return stolen goods to the people who either need them most or who rightfully deserve them. And so where I'm going with this is, what if this means that Nocturnal is ultimately the force in the Elder Scrolls that keeps having magical artifacts disappear from those who aren't worthy and then appropriates them to other more worthy people?
Could that be her motivation for trying to take control of Crystal Lake Law?
Oh boy.
Possibly. I'm just spitballing because that was a question I had of like, hey, wait a second, are these things connected?
I mean, all of the Daedric artifacts do eventually disappear and end up with somebody else. I mean,
know, but they disappear into the darkness and then reemerge thanks to thievery. I'm kind of like,
Yeah, and Felix is I think what Felix is getting at is maybe what they do is they get returned to Nocturnal, and then Nocturnal decides where they're going to show back up again.
Yeah, basically, like I think a form of that.
She's like FedEx, but for Daedric artifacts.
Same day delivery.
Yeah.
Let's be real. She's more like on track.
Oh. Well, that's actually got a lot. It's actually got me processing quite a lot, because what I'm thinking is not necessarily is this Nocturnal, but rather, if it isn't, then who is it? Because it ought to be somebody. There really ought to be some kind of a force, if it isn't Nocturnal, that that distributes.
Well, who's the Khajiit thief deity?
Oh,
it's not Rajhin, is it?
Yeah, it's Rajhin.
Yeah,
Yeah, Rajhin.
I almost said Razumdar.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, because I mean,
Which one? Yeah, good question.
that seems like something Rajhin would do. I mean, there's a whole like collection quest in Elsewhere, where you gotta collect all the things that he stole and spread around just for the fun of it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that was going to be the Thieves Guild quest in Tattered Emelian, was going to be you stealing increasingly ridiculous things, like the love of a woman and the tattoo of a slode.
And I need that guy's prosthetic leg.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. It was, the first one was you had to steal somebody's artificial eye, and then you had to steal the tattoos off of a slode, and then you had to like all this kind of crazy shit.
Slode tattoos. I never thought about that.
And then at the
sounds dope.
what you think is going to be the end of the quest line, they tell you basically get told by Rajhin to return everything in reverse order.
Oh my gosh.
And and so you have to sneak back into these places you've already been stolen from, where they're expecting more thievery to happen, so it's even harder, and get all of this stuff back. And one way or another, we were trying to work out this way where it was all going to form this big myth, like of like a series of events that all added up together. That in forward, like forwards, it wouldn't make any sense, but when you do it in reverse, it all of a sudden you start to realize that you're fulfilling a myth that is described in a book somewhere or something. But we never really got the chance to really. I mean, it was going to be a big brain quest, and we never had the chance to sit down and really beat our heads against it. Because it was supposed to be a real like holy shit moment at the end of it, but we never.
Sounds fun.
Oh yeah, well it all sounds fun until you have to do it.
True enough. By the way, I was looking up the gloves in the sub-guild quest in Morrowind. It's the Baal Malagmer, the Stonefire Men. And that's the sub-faction. It's basically like you got to be like Robin Hood. And then you can become leader of the Thieves Guild. And it's about, rekindling the fires. So.
And that was in like which expansion?
No, it wasn't an expansion. It was just in Morrowind. It was like a sub-quest for the Thieves Guild if you wanted it, and if you did stuff before achieving the Master Thief achievement or something like that. So I don't think that's tied to Nocturnal then, but again, I still stand by my main thing of Nocturnal could be the force that makes things go bye-bye for a while and then reappear elsewhere for a more worthwhile pursuit.
If it's not Nocturnal, then who should it be? And my first knee-jerk reaction was Azura, who deals with transitions.
Periite, because he's the Taskmaster.
Well, then Periite would just be the quest giver.
Yeah, he's the Taskmaster.
If not Periite, then yeah. I mean, for some reason or other, something in my head is trying to say Clavicus Vile, but I think it's because Clavicus Vile is all about
deals and contracts.
I've got a cool toy.
Yeah, but you know, like the temptation of stuff. So like he redistributes the Daedric artifact to somewhere where it will tempt somebody appropriate. You know, sort of like who decides where the ring of power ends up. You know, well, where's it going to do the most damage?
Mm-hmm.
Hobbiton,
Yep.
good deal. Unlocks repressed aspects of self. Azura covers transition into manifesting. Yeah, sure. The Bow of Shadows is another nocturnal object that we can talk about if it wasn't really fucking boring. The Eye of Nocturnal, not much been said about that. Appears to be literally the eye because Nocturnal can see through it. So that's interesting. I wonder how big it was. And then there's Evergloam, which is Nocturnal's realm. A realm of perpetual twilight, but it's not. It's worth noting here that doesn't mean midnight.
Right. So I have something to say about like twilight.
Twilight
stuff
means
like that.
dusk. So
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Doesn't it?
Technically speaking,
Okay.
like dusk, sunrise, sunset, that is like when the sun is starting to show up. So like literally once the sun rises above the horizon, that is sunrise, or when it dips below the horizon, that is sunset.
Yeah.
What happens after that is when the sun is gone, but it's not dark night yet, you
Right.
can still sort of see, that is twilight, which is also why Azura and Nocturnal, they kind of share this sphere a little bit, because Azura is the Prince of Dusk and Dawn, so Nocturnal is just kind of like, you know, her wingman or wing Daedra. And
Wing Daedra.
yeah, like a winged twilight, but that's Azura's Daedric
that kind
servant.
of behavior isn't okay.
She is the daughter of Twilight.
Yeah. So, oh wait, does that mean like Nocturnal is actual mom and like Azura's her like raging daughter?
No.
No,
Other way around.
Nocturnal is the
around.
daughter of Twilight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, big connection between Azura and Nocturnal here. Although I do want to agree with Matthew Schroeder in chat real quick. Evergloam does strike me as an extremely comfy realm. It just, I mean, if you go there in ESO, it looks really quite lovely actually. it's very nice. Probably too many birds.
It doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound bad at all. I mean, live there forever. I don't know about
that. Yeah, I don't know about that.
But it's like to visit, have a nice, you know,
get a good night's sleep, right? You know. Yeah.
But one thing that
having your shadow come alive and kill you sounds fantastic. Stop bringing up things that are real, Doc. Don't stop saying things that are true.
Well, okay, but this ties into sort of what Michael was saying earlier from Carl Jung about the shadow and the darkness, and we actually see that in the Shivering Isles expansion in Oblivion, where Sheogorath makes you face a dark, shadowy version of yourself, which, if you become an overpowered character,
is a problem.
Is actually a really difficult boss battle to do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is this idea of the darker self, which some would argue is the true self, but I'm kind of more of the fan of it's a part of you. It's kind of like yin and yang. It's like the good and the bad and the good. Like there's we're complicated, and that's why black and white is kind of dumb, and everything should be a gray maybe. But to bring it back to Nocturnal and those shadows and Evergloam and all that stuff.
Real quick, I don't know if you played the intro quest to Clockwork City.
No.
Okay. So the intro, if you get the Clockwork City DLC, they give you a starter quest to like get you into it, and it actually involves people's shadows coming alive and trying to kill them.
Cool.
And this is actually leads into the role that Nocturnal plays in the Clockwork City DLC. So it's an actual honest to god like Evergloam shadows trying to murder you. Yeah.
I need to play ESO.
Yes, yes, it's really good.
I know, but
it is really good.
I know. I've been told this for years, and I've wanted to.
Well, unfortunately, you're at this weird position now where there's so much goddamn content in the game that, like, I don't even know where to tell you to start, man. I mean, there's a lot.
I will always know where to
Reaper's
start.
March.
That is with the Daggerfall Covenant and my boys, the Red Guards.
Well, the Daggerfall Covenant, as much as I hate to say anything good about Bretons, the Daggerfall Covenant, the Daggerfall Covenant has a fantastic intro quest.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
It's actually it's probably one of the if it's not the best, like, of the three areas that you can start in vanilla ass ESO, it's probably, in my opinion, the best early starting quest. I really liked I really liked the Morrowind areas, or whatever. But I really think the Daggerfall Covenant really has some excellent questing to do there, at least early on. I haven't gotten all the way through it, so you know.
I haven't done it at all. But my main point about Nocturnal, and why I'm also mentioning the Daggerfall Covenant a bit, is I want to bring up the part of the Redguard monomyth that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
As some people in chat may know, I do also run the Facebook page, The Land of Song, and I haven't uploaded there in so long. That's because I'm working on a lot of things behind the scenes that I'm trying to figure out metaphysically before I do that, and not just have it be a bunch of ramblings like it's been until now. I want it to be a little more structured. And so one of the things that I've started picking up on, especially as we've done all these different Daedric casts, is that it's not really specifically told in Redguard culture about, Daedra. There's gods and spirits and servants and evil, malicious forces, but there isn't, like, a Redguard house of troubles. There isn't a Redguard,
which is interesting, because that's how Reachmen work too.
Yeah. I love the Reachmen, by the way. But
yeah, the new expansion's got even more Reachmen lore in it, and
which again, another
juicy.
reason to play. But anyway, so I've noticed that, like, this is an area, and even from what I've seen from ESO, it's very lacking. But there's a couple parts in the monomyth that, to me, kind of go underutilized. Which is, at one point, it says that Satak was first serpent who came before, and all the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of its scales. So there's light. But what's outside of that light? It's the darkness. But Satak is just the one thing. It's not until the hunger comes from within that you then have, like, time and the Anu Padme dynamic that forms, etc., etc. And then there's a part that I personally love, and we see it in actually all the games, which is the star sign of the serpent, which is not a constellation at all. It's the absence of a constellation, which, again, is very apt for Lorcan, the missing god. Like, I get that, and I feel that is very accurate. At the same time, if we're talking about darkness and possibility, in the Redguard myth, they say that after the hunger fell out, Sep was forced to... he was condemned to slink about in the dead skin, a hungry void that tries to eat the stars. And if a void is just the absence of light, and if Nocturnal is the mistress of darkness, I feel like there's some kind of connection there that hasn't really been made before. And that's what I'm still struggling to kind of find and connect, because I feel like that's definitely worth a connection. I just can't figure it out on my own yet.
Yeah.
Well, remember that with the Khajiit, Nocturnal goes through identity crises where she thinks that she's Namira, and Namira is the eater of the light. Literally in the Oblivion quest.
Then maybe Sep's, like, the hungry void, the jealous void that tries to eat the stars. You could also make an argument that's Namira.
Yeah.
Or Nocturnal, who thinks she's Namira.
Oh,
also
yeah.
Possible. Also, while we're talking about, like, darkness and stuff, I did touch on it briefly with, like, the talk of Hinduism and, like, Atman, Brahman, the dark waters of creation. This also makes the discussion about the waters of oblivion relevant, because we have waters of memory, but then you also have waters of oblivion. I know we've talked about this before in, like, some other streams and lorecasts, perhaps even other casual ones. But if you have a kind of waters of oblivion, which is kind of, you know, a fancy way for saying space and the stars and everything, and that's how you navigate. Whose sphere is that? Is it like Sithis because like the absence of stuff, or is it Nocturnal because it's dark and still related to like dark waters and stuff like that? Who's kind of orchestrating this in the heavenly body that is the Arbis?
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh well, it's a metaphor, but as we all know,
Well, yeah, metaphor made manifest.
So I mean, because I want it to be poetic language that we don't know how to describe this, so we're just gonna make something up that feels right. And so in this case, you know, well, let's compare it to, you know, the waters, the ocean, because it's you know, this terrifying, unknowable. You know, we don't know what's, you know, 20,000 leagues beneath us. We have no idea.
Irritatingly.
And so for that, yeah, and so, you know,
Terrors.
Yeah, there's a almost a fearful reverence, some kind of, you know, a respect. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
I almost said it. Yeah.
You know, I mean, let's take it out of test for a second. I mean, how many? I mean, if you think of a classic, you know, a sailor or a pirate, how superstitious are they about the ocean? You never kill an albatross out at sea. You know, you don't sail on a moonless night. You don't, you know, there's so many different things that.
Don't you know it's bad luck to be waking a man while he's sleeping?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things like that out at sea, and that, you know, you respect the sea because she is a cruel mistress, and you know she will sink you as soon as hold you aloft or whatever, you know. And so I wonder if that same sort of flavor of reverence and respect is being applied to Oblivion, because we don't know what can happen. You sail out onto it, you could crash land somewhere and have no way home. You could get through just fine. We don't know. Let's not treat it like something that, you know, you can't just, you know, it's not like walking down the hallway. You see what's in front of you. It's anything can come from any direction, and I don't know. I mean, that's how I interpret it. But I mean, the real problem I'm trying to grapple with here is, how do we convert that into something literal? Because I mean, that's obviously a metaphor, and metaphor makes manifest. So let's say I can't really find a link between memory and oblivion. I mean, I guess I guess Hermes Mora could fit in there somewhere. You know, all the forbidden knowledge, all the memories that aren't, all the things that aren't remembered. The memories exist, but no one remembers them, or something along those lines.
In the deep darkness of the oceans of memory?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was my dog. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead, Mike.
Sure. So I do have. So I do get to bring up a heresy. So in yay heresies. In words of Clan Mother Onissi, it talks about how Fatima went to birth the last of her litter far away in the great darkness. Blah blah blah. And Fatima gave birth to Lorcaj, the last of her litter, in the great darkness, and the heart of Lorcaj was filled with the great darkness. And when he was born, the great darkness knew its name was Namira. Now, ooh, does that raises some very, very interesting thoughts. But then we'd had this whole thing from Dark Spirits, where, let me find it here again quick. Born from the black blood of Lorcaj, which we know is Namira, is Noctra, and then she had to fight with Boethra until she knew her name was not Noctra. So there are some shenanigans here, because it appears that the awakened darkness is first. Am I still okay? So I'm not quite sure how to work that one out, but what it seems to me is that the great darkness, is the unawakened darkness, which is nocturnal. So the black seas of oblivion are nocturnal because they're possibility, but they're not possibility. They're negativity. If you're Adric and you go out into oblivion, you get noped out, unless you have a belief engine. More on that another time. But
or you're in a spaceship. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're in a void ship, or you know.
I just had a thought feeding into that, Michael.
Please.
Rather than attributing it to a single prince, could we not attribute it to all of them? Because all are present. This is where all spheres connect. So the waters of oblivion is the purest way to say, well, yeah, it's not nocturnal. It's the slurry of all of them. They're all here. They're all lurking inside this.
Now
space.
I hate to get simplistic, but I was under the impression I recently did an RP with a character who starts in Cold Harbor, which, by the way, I highly recommend. Great fun, because Cold Harbor is awful and wonderful at the same time. And of course, you got this wonderful blue goo everywhere, azorplasm. And
right.
And there's a book, and I can't remember which one it is, that associates the azorplasm with the waters of oblivion. That's the raw. It wasn't Creatia. It was like the opposite word, because Creatia would be Adric.
Yeah, because I mean, you can have chaotic Creatia. I mean, that's
maybe it was Chaotia or something like that.
Yeah,
but it was the idea that the water of oblivion was the azorplasm, that's the way that it's this blue goo is how it manifests in Cold Harbor, but it wouldn't necessarily manifest like that someplace else.
Well, see, and I always figured that was, the azorplasm as we see it is one interpretation of these waters that each realm of oblivion has its own water it uses.
Right.
So like in Apocrypha, for example, all that liquid we see is actually ink.
Which I love.
And I don't think that's confirmed anywhere. That's something that me and someone else came up with.
I'm with you.
So much sense.
I think Relmina Verenum's binding ritual, this is a character in Oblivion, is her creating a necromancy. Oh, never mind. It's necromancy. Never mind. It may not apply, but the quote is, "And last, the light of flesh, the illumination of soul, perception, thought, memory, imagination, I summon thee, walker in flesh, flesh of true flesh, from those waters of oblivion which sire thy kind." A bit of a connection.
I'm not. All I was gonna say, you guys know that I'm crazy about void travel, and I don't quite know what to do with the voids between the realms, and I talk about void travel, but I don't mean the technical void, which would be Sithis. Nobody goes to Sithis. That's where you go to die. I'm talking about the spaces between the planes, right? And I'm not sure what to do with that. I don't know if that's its own realm or if it's just like the place where people hang out. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way. I'm not entirely crazy about the azorplasm being the waters of oblivion. I think that makes, like you're saying, I think that makes things really, really complicated and doesn't really work with what a lot of other lore, not just what we understand, but like in general, like if you make that connection, then a lot of other things become unnecessarily complex, if not impossible, And I mean, generally speaking, like, I'll put it to you this way. If I were to end up somehow or another finding something that looks like an enantiomorphic event in the Elder Scrolls universe, and it's identified even as an enantiomorphic event, but it doesn't contain the three basic principles of, like, the king, the rebel, the observer, and then the king protecting something that the observer steals, and then the requisite betrayal. And it's depicted in a way that absolutely denies that one of those things happen, then my knee-jerk reaction to that is going to be, well, I think somebody in the writing team screwed up. That's it. It's not going to be, oh, well, I have to reevaluate the entire, my whole knowledge of blah, 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 blah. It's going to be, shrug.
I don't know. I mean, I think the Enantiomorph is one of those things that, I mean, it's such a broad kind of thing that I mean, we can interpret it to fit a whole swath of events.
Yep.
I mean, a good example that's also relevant to Nocturnal is the events of Somerset's storyline.
Exactly.
Where you've got the triad, you've got Clavicus Val from Nocturnal and Mythology. They're all trying to, they're working together to accomplish this one goal. And my interpretation of that was they all wanted to betray each other because they all wanted to be the thief in the Enantiomorphic scenario.
Right, because the thief is theoretically the one that gains the big secret, the treasure of the tower.
But the thing they didn't realize, the thing they didn't think about, at least Mythology and Clavicus Vile didn't think about, is that Nocturnal is the patron deity of thieves. That's her jam.
So that's what she's good at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But at the same time, because they all tried to become the thief, that means it didn't necessarily work the way any of them intended it to.
Yeah.
I mean, Nocturnal obviously came out on top, but I think the Enantiomorph in that scenario failed.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they all tried to do the same thing. They all tried to encompass the same role.
Well, if they had been doing it properly, then they would have played their roles better, but... Yeah. Think about the 3 Daedra you're talking about here. I mean, how likely is that?
Yeah. I mean, because you can. Well, okay, let Felix.
Yeah, but before I lose train of thought, Lorcan, Blood, Namira, Azura, Nocturnal. Is that an enantiomorphic event, and does Nocturnal steal the title of Urdra from Namira? Rebel, King, Observer. King is Namira. Rebel is Nocturnal. Observer is Azura. That might be an enantiomorphic event.
Well, who's the acting party? Where's the principle of action coming from? It's Azura, isn't it? Because she fights Namira.
No, I thought Azura's the one who had to fight Nocturnal to
that's Boethra. Boethra fights Nocturnal.
Right.
Yeah. Azura exorcises Namira.
Okay, so then maybe it's Boethra then that's there. But I'm feeling like there might be an enantiomorphic event happening there.
Yeah, maybe.
In the void blood of Lorcan to decide who gets to be king shit.
Well, something that occurred to me just now, because you were listing off, recurring themes of Enantiomorph. I'm going to double back on what I said about a failed Enantiomorph. It failed as far as Mythology and Clavicus Vile are concerned, but I think it succeeded where Nocturnal was concerned.
Yeah, maybe.
But Clavicus Vile and Nocturnal both operate as the observer. Or the vestige operates as an observer.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's
because Nocturnal rips the heart of transparent law out of Iakesis. He dies in the process. So he was the king.
Yes. Sure.
And we witnessed this event.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't get maimed, but Clavicus Vile and Nocturnal get banished. They get thrown out, just like Magnus did.
So
and Padme.
So one of the little twists about the Enantiomorph is that it usually the thief defeating the king is the event, and the mage and the observer witnesses this event to make it real.
Yep.
The witness watching the event and the betrayal makes it real. However, one thing that kind of gets thrown around a lot in my head is who gains from a an enantiomorphic event, the answer is it doesn't have to be anybody, I think. In order to sort of keep the enantiomorphic structure vague, I think it's advantageous to say that nobody has to gain. But sometimes it's fun to think about it like that. And one of the things that I used to think was that the thief is always the person who gains from the enantiomorphic event. But the more I think about it, the more I suspect that the person who gains from it is actually the observer.
Okay.
And or perhaps that the observer also gains something, so it's a little like I said, this is really more sort of like an intellectual exercise that I've been rolling around in my head. I'm not really trying to encourage people to take this super serial, but but I'm kind of knocking the idea around in my head that like maybe the observer gets something in some of these circumstances. And one of the reasons why I'm suggesting that is that sometimes the player character is clearly the observer in an enantiomorphic event and comes out with something at the end of it. Now that just might be video gamey stuff like, oh, you get experience points or a new skill or something like that.
I mean, what did Magnus gain?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or what did Nur gain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and that's yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't have holes. I'm just saying it's something to roll around. Maybe Magnus did gain something from it. Maybe Magnus gained. And
I did want to. Boy, I don't know. This is maybe a little bit spoilery, but by God, it's 9 years old. So
yeah.
At the end of the Civil War quest, you are watching as the rebel. So it could be Ulfric, is getting ready to kill Tullius or vice versa. And they offer to you to be the one to do it.
Right.
To make you the rebel.
Right.
And of course, I told him, no. This is your mess,
you guys
bro.
solved this problem. Yeah, I don't fucking want to do
witness.
Yeah. Both of you guys are assholes. You figure it out.
I used a spell mod to block off the room so the other people couldn't come in, so I could have Ulfric all to myself.
Nice. But in terms of like what did they gain in the enantiomorphic event? Like they were maimed, I guess you could say, but also in terms of what they gained, Nur gained children, the worlds of creation. And if you want to argue about what Magnus gained, I guess you could call it the gateway to Aetherius. He's the hole through which that allows, I think,
but he's
Magicka.
He's locked there is the problem. He looks back at Mundus and regrets leaving.
Does he?
I mean,
does he regret it, or because like my interpretation is like, no, you know what? Fuck this mess, I'm out.
That's always been how I've interpreted it, because he collects the Elder Scrolls every now and again, just to keep a record of what happened in the Mundus, of all the possibilities, all the things that happened or could have happened or should have happened.
Then maybe that could be his reward, or it could also be that by not being tied to existence and not being trapped on the skin ball or anything like that, he has maintained his true full breadth of spirit and ever-flowing, immortality, and not being given true form yet. You could say that might be something else he gained.
There was, I'm gonna see if I can find it. There was something MK posted ages ago, and I want to say it was an IRC, where he talks about Magnus, and it's almost a poem about how he sends the Magnigi back. Yeah, and I gotta see if I can find it.
I know if you read LJ's Anuvanasi, he talks about how stop. He wants to go for a walk so bad. He talks about how when Magnus left, part of him was scraped off by the hole that he made. Like he created a certain size hole, but not all of them could fit through it, so some of it had to fall off, and that's where we get Mehrunes Dagon from. And then, I mean, he lost his eye, potentially. I I mean, he's lost the ability to interact in any salient way with the Mundus. He just kind of it's kind of like he's locked in a security room watching everything happen. He can't do anything about it. I mean, him being there is important for magic reasons, but that's the extent of his interaction. So I don't know. I mean, it's a really weird, subjective kind of. Would you stop?
He whines.
Poor pupper.
It's fine. We're kind of winding this one down anyway. I think we're talking about Magnus instead of Nocturnal. You know.
Yeah, he does this thing where he yawns and then he whines to finish out the yawn.
Yeah.
Like you yawn, you go. He does that.
He's not technically barking. Okay.
Yeah.
He's yawning.
He's just yeah. Yeah, you do that all the time, huh? Yeah. Oh, don't give me that.
Yeah, like.
No, I'm on.
Who we got to do next? I can look.
It's Periite, I think.
Oh shit. Well, I gotta find a way to work around LJ's schedule, just because I would not dare to discuss Periite without LJ.
I have some fun heresies about Periite.
Good.
I do not. He's easily the Daedra I know the least about.
I'm of the mind that he is the manager of the Jills.
Yeah.
I've
heard this idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I've got all kinds of questions about like disease in general in the Elder Scrolls universe. So but we had a cast about that because COVID had just started.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, do we need to wrap anything up? What was the shit? Was it selectiveslorecast@gmail.com? I think it might be theselectiveslorecast@gmail.com. I'm so bad at this.
I forget.
For any questions you guys might have, I don't know if we've received any yet. We really would like to get some community questions going. You can also show up in the Discord channel, which the link to which is in the description of this channel.
Make a post on Tesla.
I may do that. Yeah, sure. That's not a bad idea.
I mean, it's gonna get flagged, and I'll have to approve it. But...
Okay.
But
I'll do that then, and I'll send you a message and swing my weight around. Because #privilege.
Do it.
And it's okay. I've got connections on Reddit.
Yeah, but like, is there anything else that we're sort of missing from Nocturnal? Like we talked about her spheres, her origin, her Daedric realm, her artifacts,
cool MacGuffins. That's it, dude.
Well, all right then.
Yeah, I think we got everything.
All right. So yeah, thanks for everybody for tuning in. And oh wait, hold on, let me do the credits. Owen Drake, once again, thanks for resubscribing. I really appreciate it. You don't have to do that, but I love it anyway. And yeah, wave goodbye.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.